going to start off with this hollow form, and I've sanded it to 320. I've put me some lines here, burned me some lines in it. This is going to be my palette, my canvas for the coloring I'm going to do, and I'm going to start off by masking off the part that I'm not going to color. I'm going to use some plastic type tape. This is called fine line tape. It doesn't have much sticky to it, and you can stretch it, and I'm going to start, and I'm going to lay it right in this groove, just like this, all the way around. I'm going to do this on both ends. So my tape's not wanting to stick to the wood very good, so I've put a piece of masking tape here which has a little bit more sticky on it. I'm getting started here. Get it started off this line. Stretching, and I'm stretching this fairly tight because I want it to go down into the line. Now the reason I burn these lines is because I'm going to dye this piece, and I don't want the dye to pick up the grain and run outside the part that I'm using as my canvas. So by burning the line in it, I've disrupted the fibers, and the dye is not going to run past this burn line. So I get this on here just right, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fingernail and I'm going to run it down in there nice and tight, tuck it in. Make sure that I'm not onto my palette that I'm going to use, and everything's good. Now I'm just going to mask up the rest of this and cover it up so I don't get spray on it. And I'll be back in a minute. Okay, I've got it all taped up. I got my bedways covered. I put me some this packing shrink wrap stuff, this stretch wrap on my chuck and on my tailstock. Got my lathe covered a little bit so I don't get oversprayed on it. I'm gonna start off with some yellow spray dye like this right here, and I'm just gonna get a nice base coat to start with for my process. Try to keep it on the piece and off my lathe. This is a spirit-based dye, alcohol, so it's going to soak in and dry fairly quickly. Need a little ventilation, but not a tremendous lot. You don't want to sit here and breathe it. You notice that it takes longer to dry on the side grain than it does up here on the edge where it's drying pretty quick, or on this end grain a little bit. It soaks it right up. I want to get a good yellow coating. When we're done with that, we're going to give it a few minutes to dry. Okay, our dye is now dyed. Our dye is now dried, and we're going to seal it off before we put our hot glue on there. And I'm just going to spray it with some lacquer here, some rattle can lacquer. You can use shellac if you want, or lacquer. Just remember, whatever top coat you're going to put on it has to be compatible with what you're using here. So if you're going to use one type of lacquer here, use the same type of lacquer to coat it with on the top. Now this, unlike the alcohol, the spirit base is, you don't want to breathe this, so I've got a full respirator here that I'm going to put on before I apply this. And I'm going to apply me two basically wet coats. Here again, it's going to soak into the end coat, the end grain, more than it's going to soak in here in the center. So you're going to have to put a little bit more down here in the bottom and the top. Get good coverage. And that should do it. We're going to let that dry now. Okay, I had had a little trash in it after I cleared it, so I put a little 1,000 grit sandpaper on it and kind of cleaned it up a little bit. I got a hot glue gun here, just a plain old hobbyist hot glue gun. It's warmed up now. I'm going to, and I got a piece of plastic. I've found this type of plastic works better than some. This is not, what I'm fixing to do with the plastic's not necessary. I just kind of like the effect it gives me. I'm just gonna put this glue on and I'm gonna go completely from one end of the pallet to the other and even off the pallet like this. All over the piece. And then I'm going to take my plastic here and I'm going to kind of squish that down because that gives me a little bit better pattern. Now, if you want to use the plastic, what you need to do is mess around and find a piece of plastic that works well. Some works better than the others. I found some that the glue wanted to stick to the plastic more than it wanted to stick to the wood. This particular plastic seems to be work pretty well. It peels right off there just like that. Nice and easy. Come back, put me another glue stick in here, and continue on. Using the plastic also allows the glue gun to kind of recuperate because I'm putting a lot of glue through it, so the tip wants to cool down. You'll later see that when I squish the glue out like this, it gives me different type of pattern on the wood. That didn't stick. You want to be careful. That glue is right there. If you get it on you, it will burn you. It's hot. The more random your pattern here is, the nicer your design will look when you're done. Do a little bit more. Okay, the next process we want to do is we've got some fine little streamers on here, just little hairs. You probably can't see that. We want to clean those off because those are gonna be hard to clean off later if we get dye and stuff over the top of them. So we just want to kind of brush them off. We're going to leave the main glue on here. We're just going to take the little hairy things off. Like that right there, you can see it. What'll happen is the dye I'm going to put over top of it will kind of melt that underneath it, and it's going to mess up our finish in the very end if we leave it on there. So I'm going to go around and clean all those off, and we'll be back. So I've gone through and I've got all the little fuzzies off now. All of them can see, I always miss a few. And so I've got my yellow base coat. Now if you know your color wheel, from yellow I can go towards the blue side, which is going to give me green, or I can go towards the red side, which is going to give me orange. And the last one I did, I went towards the blue side, so I'm going to go towards the red side with this one. And I've got some orange here, so I'm going to dust a little orange on this piece. And I'm just going to kind of lightly go over it until I start getting what I want here. I think I'm going to dust a little red on it, bring it on up a little bit oranger. Let's see how this is going to do. Yeah, that's bringing it on up to what I want. Use light coats. Remember that right in here you can see that the line wants to get fuzzy, so you want to hit it there and kind of on both sides of it so that you don't end up with fuzzy lines any more than you have to. All right. This is orange. I'm coming back with orange again a little bit. Bring that color on up. I'm going to let that dry a while. We'll go to the next process. Okay, that's dry. And I picked off a few more little fuzzies. I could see them after I got some dye on here. So I got it pretty clean. And this next step is totally optional. I like what it does for the piece. That'll look pretty good if I were to unmask it and put some clear on it where it is. But I like to kind of fade it in. I'm going to go with some plain old airbrush paint here. I've got my airbrush out. We're going to get it all set up here real quick. This is a translucent red color. Practice a little bit here. Whoa, too much. Turn it down a little bit. All right. All I'm going to do here is I'm going to take one of these glue lines and I'm just going to kind of follow it, kind of blend around it just like that. I'll make sure I spray the edge of it really well so that I get a good line. This is really easy to do if you've never done any airbrush work. This is not hard at all, and you don't need an expensive fancy airbrush. That little airbrush that Harbor Freight sells is actually a pretty good little airbrush. I have a couple of them around here. One of the things I like about them is you don't have to clean them really well because they go bad. They're only like $15 or $20. Whereas this airbrush that I'm using, you want to clean it really well because it's like $300. So, and you'll see what I'm doing. I'm just staying on just off the edge of the glue, and I'm trying to box in each one of these little things. And I'm going to do this on the whole piece. And then I'm going to look at it and see if I need to come back with some more color to fade it in. So I can always fade it a little bit like this and just kind of put a little in the center. But I'll just continue to do this. If you do buy the Harbor Freight airbrush to get started, there's one of those little fuzzies right there. They sell a couple of them. You want to get the one that's dual action. That means when you pull it, you get air, and when you pull it back, you get material. So you can keep your air running and just kind of play with it back and forth and get the amount of material you want out of it. Or where you have a glue, some of this hot glue, you want to go around it. And I'm going to continue to do this, and I'll get the video back on. There's another little teeny piece when I've got it done, and you can take a look at it. Okay, I got it all done. I looked it all over to make sure that I got every line before I clean and put away my airbrush. Looks good. I'm ready to start peeling the hot glue off. See what we've got underneath. So this whole process, you've seen most of it in this video. What you haven't seen is drying time. This whole thing took between 2 and 3 hours to do. And but the actual working on the piece only takes 30 minutes. The rest of it is allowing all this stuff to dry. You need to be careful peeling this stuff off. It sticks pretty good. Now you see, by using the plastic and pressing it down, I get a pretty sharp line here. You're going to see some less sharp lines someplace where it didn't get pushed down, and you'll see the difference here. All this glue will come off. You just have to take your time and pick at it. You want to get it all off before you start putting a finish on here, because if your finish goes over it, sometimes it bubbles it a little bit. And you can start to see what we've got here. You got a little bit right there. I'm going to have to come back and pick that off. There's one of the little fuzzies I missed. Those little fuzzies we picked off, you can see there's one a little bit bigger. They make an interesting pattern. The problem is sometimes they kind of get melted in. This hot glue is affected by alcohol, and your dye has alcohol in it. Sometimes it melts that little fuzzy in. It makes it really hard to get back off. And you don't want to put a finish over the top of it. There's that little piece right there. Let me pick this off, get it untaped. We'll come back and take a look and see what we've got. Okay, here's our finished piece. All we got to do now is just put a finish on it, finish cutting the tenon off, and she's done. And if you like a red orange, that's a fairly nice piece. Light on it a little bit better for you there. There you go. You see what we've got. There, that'll give you a good view of it. So, that's the process. Thank you.